Hey guys, how you all are doing? And we're back with another video and thing, you know what I mean? And this one we're gonna be watching is something on Irish mythology. Who were the Tuatha De Danann? Hope I pronounced that right. And this seems like it's going to be interesting. So let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer see what this is all about here.
Who were the Tuatha De Danann? Of all the characters of Irish mythology, it is the Tuatha De Danann that attract the most interest, speculation, and rumour. We hear them described as being like men, only with godlike abilities, performers of great feats and deeds. We hear them described as masters of magic, with the power to command the weather, summon spectres, to heal, to feed, and even raise the dead after battle.
You know, it's amazing how every single culture have these myths. You have African mythology, you have Greek mythology, and even in the newer world in the Caribbean, there's a mixture of European mythology and African mythology sort of mixed into to form these characters, you know what I mean? And when you start learning about them, you realize how much cultures take from each other to formulate a mythology of gods and goddesses or even folktale characters and stuff like that. It's amazing. How we all are connected to somehow through mythology. Like the god of the stars, but a whole other culture have their own version of the god of the stars. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of cool to think that, and that's why I keep saying, man. Generally speaking, we pretty much we think the same, but then we turn around and use certain of our mythologies to demonize each other, when most mythologies have godlike and demon-like aspects to it. All we have to do is to emphasize the demon-like aspects of a certain group's mythology to paint them in a bad light. It's crazy how we do that, isn't it? With further research, we figure out, hey, we got the same thing too. It's just which one we choose to emphasize about ourselves to make ourselves look better or good.
Come to Ireland mysteriously. One account describes magical mist floating on the sky. More sober accounts say that they set their ships on fire to prevent retreat, the smoke being a more rational explanation for the magical mist. No matter what way we choose to look at the Tuatha De Danann, we cannot escape the altogether mystical and otherworldly nature of this group of beings in Irish mythology. When they came to Ireland, they first settled on Iron Mountain, Slieve on Iran, in County Leitrim, and they concealed their presence with a magical mist. They brought 4 magical artifacts to Ireland from the 4 mythical island cities of Mirius, Elias, Gurius, and Findius. These magical artifacts were Cor na Dagda, or the cauldron of the Dagda, who was the good god and the father god of the Tuatha De Danann. And this cauldron never emptied, no matter how much was eaten from it. There was the Gay Bolga, a magical spear or sleg, which belonged to the god Lu. No battle could be sustained against it. It entered the body at one point and made 30 wounds inside, and was used by Cuchulainn when Lu, in the form of his divine father, appeared to help him defeat the men of Ireland in the Tombo Cooley epic. They brought Anclave Sulis, the Sword of Light, which belonged to Nuada, who was the king of the Tuatha De Danann when they arrived in Ireland. And finally, they brought that famous Anlia Fáil, the Stone of Destiny, which let out a scream whenever a rightful king placed his foot upon it, and was housed for a time on Knockchower, the hill of Tara in County Meath, which was an ancient focal point of Irish rule. There are a few different theories about the meaning of their name, but it is most commonly accepted to mean the peoples of the goddess Danu, as this was the name used by the medieval Gaelic literati to refer to the old pre-Christian gods. The words Tuatha De Danann have been translated as people from the word Tuatha, of the goddess from the word De, and Danu from the word Danann. This Danu, sometimes Dana or Anna or Anu, was a primordial mother goddess of the Tuatha De Danann. As far as India and as ancient as the Rig Vedas, we find mention of a primordial goddess of the same name, Danu, mother of a demonic serpent being called Vritra, who kept the waters of the world captive until he was defeated by Indra. Potential links can also be drawn with the Roman Diana, goddess of nature, the hunt, and the moon, and the Greek Dion, who was an ancient Titaness, a wife of Zeus, and whose very name simply means goddess. Further comparisons have also been made to Danu in River Danube, which housed many Celtic settlements along its basin. All of this would suggest that the Tuatha De Danann were a group of early migrants to Ireland and whose knowledge and skill was advanced compared to that of the native inhabitants. And it was advanced to the point that they were perceived to be more than men, the bringers of order, farming, art, and higher civilization.
I wonder how many civilizations had that sort of effect on the people that they how should I put it, encroached on. You know what I mean? If they come there and they had the technology is better and all of that, and they bring in things that that group of people living they have never seen, and depending on those group of people's spiritual beliefs, they might look at those people as gods. Now that didn't happen in the West here because the Native Americans didn't have guns or gunpowder or nothing like that, and that came along. I wonder if they look at it as some kind of spiritual thing, or look at them as gods to a certain degree because they have this powerful weapon that could just annihilate them with a loud bang, and all they had was arrows and stuff, which more than likely changed after a while because then the Native Americans they were able to procure the same weapons and fight back. Imagine the realization that they're not that powerful, they just have a different tool than we have, a more effective tool of destruction than we have.
The following quote is taken from Seamus McManus's Story of the Irish Race. Quote, "Such a great people were the De Danann, and so uncommonly skilled in the few arts of their time, that they dazzled even their conquerors and successors, the Milesians, into regarding them as mighty magicians. Later generations of the Milesians, to whom were handed down the wonderful traditions of the wonderful people they had conquered, lifted them into a mystic realm, their greatest ones becoming gods and goddesses, who supplied to their successors a beautiful mythology. Most conquerors come to despise the conquered, but here they came to honor, almost to worship those whom they had subdued, which proves not only greatness in the conquered, but also bigness of mind and distinctiveness of character in the conquerors. The De Danann skill in the arts and crafts in course of time immortalized itself in beautiful legends among the Milesians." End quote. All this works its way nicely into another interpretation of the name Tuatha De Danann. As I just mentioned, the word Tua means a people, something like a tribe or race or country, or in another sense a social order. The word De means a god or a goddess, or spiritual or divine. But the word Danann, in this alternative theory, has been interpreted to connect to the word Dan or Dana, meaning poetry and suggestive of skill in art and craft. From this view, the Tuatha De Danann are a group of people who introduced a new advanced social order, Tua, a spirituality, the Day, and arts, poetry,
Oh wow!
and is high culture, the Dana, to Ireland.
It's
In
kind of
other
cool.
places, they are sometimes described as the Fir Dea, meaning men of the goddess, the ever-living ones, because they were immortal, the Aes She, because they were the people of the hills, or of the hollow hills, who are the fairies we hear of in the Irish fireside stories. They are called the Fir Tree Nia, or the men of tree gods in some of the sagas, and later this same term, Fir Tree Nia, would come to describe the Christian missionaries who sought to propagate the concept of a Christian religion based on a triune godhead among the native people. And since Danu had only 3 sons, Brian, Yuchar, and Yuchavar, it is thought that the three gods in Fairtrin is in reference to these three sons. The sovereignty of the Tuatha De Danann over Ireland would later be challenged and the kingship seized by a new wave of migrants known as the Milesians, who also had druids and magic, poetry and laws, and whose lineages would continue to rule Ireland for years to come. Having landed on the island, the invaders were met by three goddesses of the Tuatha De Danann, Iru, Manva, and Fola. They were the wives of the last three kings of the Tuatha De Danann, and as goddesses, symbolised the sovereignty of the land. Each one uttered a blessing and asked the Milesians to name the island after herself if they were successful in battle. Iru became the dominant name, up until the current day where we see Ireland rendered as Ira in Gaelic, but we also find the names Banva and Fola as affectionate and poetic references to Ireland. The Milesians finally conquered the Tuatha De Danann at the Battle of Teltu at a place near the Hill of Tara. Once defeated, Amarine, who was the chief druid of the Milesians, had the responsibility of dividing the island between the two factions. He cunningly allotted the land above ground to the Milesians and the land below ground to the Tuatha De Danann. A variant on this tale has the Tuatha De Danann assembling a Brunaboyne after their defeat, to hold council led by Manannán mac Lir. Having debated their predicament, they chose both Jarg, the son of the Dagda, as their new king, and they decided to scatter themselves to the eternal land of the otherworld under the hills of Ireland. The principal figures of the Tuatha De Danann established their otherworldly palaces, or brew, within prominent mounds, many of which still exist to this day. Some of the key characters make appearances as gods and goddesses in both the Ulster and Fenian cycles, sometimes taking the form of a divine parent, or appearing to lend guidance or support to a warrior in need. But it's important to note that they are not worshipped as gods and goddesses in a religious sense in the other cycles. In some cases, human remains have even been found inside the passages of these mounds, leading archaeologists to interpret them as burial mounds, passage tombs, or tumuli. Sometimes they are called fairy forts, and they were known as Shi in the native tongue. The people who lived there were the Aes Shi, or Dina Shi, that is, the people of the Shi, or the people of the hills. Their otherworldly domains are known by the names like the Land of the Young, the Plain of Honey, the Many-Coloured Land, the Delightful Plain, and the Promised Land. Whatever we can say of these strange characters and the worlds they inhabit, it is from this realm that Ireland draws her deep wealth of fairy folklore, storytelling, and superstition. While it is almost dead among younger generations, belief in the fairies never really went away among a certain type of elderly country people, a sort which is now becoming increasingly rare in modern Ireland. It should be clear by now that these fairies are not the wish-granting nice fairies, the Tinkerbells or fairy godmothers that we see in Disney movies. In fact, the people had a deep fear of the fairies. They held superstitious beliefs about them and would go out of their way not to anger or upset them. The Reverend John O'Hanlon wrote on the topic of the native Irish belief in the fairy folk in his article titled Fairy Beliefs, Irish Folklore, saying they were regarded by the peasantry to partake of a mixed human and spiritual nature.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of history is a mixture of spiritual nature and humans, depending on who encountered whom. Some might think others as superior beings, and I could see the ones that are looked as superior beings magnifying that belief and taking power over the people who believe them to be more superior. Oh wow, that is crazy. I guess it would be easier to accept defeat if you see somebody as a godlike figure. You know, there's nothing we could do. It's a god or a goddess or something like that, which would make the idea of being defeated or the advent of being defeated easier to accept. Now that would only last for long for so long, I should say, before people say, oh, wait a minute, no, that's a human being. Look at them, they're dying just like us, they have diseases just like us. They must not be. That's spiritually powerful. And then you have rebellions and stuff like that. But back then in that time, you know what I mean? That's the way it would look at it. Now I don't think anybody think any one man has got more spiritual power than the other. It's all military and money now. Of course, back then too, money might have played a part in it, because the people who have the power to think that those other people believe they are gods, they're gonna have the best of the best. You know what I mean? If not demand the best of the best, have the best of the best bestowed onto them. Kind of like how you have these rich Hollywood people, and all these companies would just give them free stuff. Same thing.
It continues,
To a certain
quote,
degree.
although invisible to men, particularly during the day, they hear and see all that takes place among mortals in which they have any special concern. Hence, the peasantry is always anxious to secure their good opinion and kind offices, and to propitiate or avert their anger by civil conversational practices. Fairies are always mentioned with respect and reserve. It is also considered inhuman to strain potatoes or spill hot water on or over the threshold of a door, as thousands of spirits are supposed to congregate invisibly at such a spot and would suffer from that infliction. Before drinking, a peasant would often spill a small portion of his draught on the ground as a complimentary libation to the good people. End quote.
Wait a minute now. Isn't that what the gangsters do here when they pour out their 40 and say this is for the dead homies? Modern day similarities to historical stuff. Wow. Crazy, ain't it?
And while we see here that the people sometimes call them Andini Maha, or the good people, this was done so out of fear of the fairies, in case the fairies might be listening, and not because they were thought to be actually benevolent. In some accounts, it is portrayed that the Tuatha De Danann, the fairies, hate the men of Ireland for having driven them out of their worldly kingdom into the hills, which draws a parallel with the fallen angels of the Bible and the jinn of Islam. Mounds and tullets were believed to be fairy forts and are still called so to this day. These were the otherworldly and magical domains of the fairies. Strange things are said to happen around them. Animals would not approach them, for example, and people dare not enter near them, and farmers dare not level them because of the fear of the wrath of the Sidhe dwelling inside. Perhaps the most well-known of the Sidhe,
The Banshee.
that infamous Gaelic omen, the Banshee, which literally means the woman Sidhe, or woman person of the hills, a woman fairy. Her wailing scream is said to be a portent of death to those who hear it, but traditionally she visits
That's where
only
that came
certain
from.
Gaelic families. Following the logic of the word Banshee, expert in Celticology and mythology, Peter Beresford Ellis, has speculated that the word fairy may derive from Farshi, which would mean a man Sidhe, or a man person of the hills, or a man fairy, a Farshi or a Fairy fairy. Incidentally, he considers that the word pixie could similarly derive from a reference to the Picts, a mysterious pre-Scotic race inhabiting North Britain who could be pixies or pixies.
Yeah. I'm watching this and he keeps using the word fairy, and the word has evolved to the point where, a certain group of people were called fairies. But was the people that was so that they could look down on them? And maybe, quite possibly, when you think of modern day fairies, you think of all these little Disney type characters, you know what I mean? Prancing around and stuff like that. And that could be the reason why they call a certain group fairies as a derogatory term. When the true meaning of the word fairies means, in Irish mythology, means something, but it all boils down to the same thing: something to be feared. And if it's to be feared, it's to be looked down upon. So the word has evolved to suit the culture as it is, but the meaning of the word means the same thing, only it doesn't have the same spiritual connotations that it had back then.
Regardless of what we think of all this, the fairies, which are the minimized descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, were thought to be real, and this had a significant influence on the beliefs and therefore the actions of the people who held to the superstitions. And of all of the fairy beliefs, the belief in the concept of the changeling was perhaps the most chilling and extreme. There was a deep fear that the fairies would snatch away a child or a relative and replace them with one of their own, an imposter. The belief was so strong and the fear so deep that it sometimes even led to the murder of children or relatives who were thought to be changelings. In 1895, Bridget Cleary was burned to death by her husband Michael and others who were convinced she had been replaced by a changeling. Since his true wife had been snatched away and replaced by the fairies, Michael believed he was just killing the evil changeling who had replaced his wife. Michael Cleary was found guilty of manslaughter and spent 15 years in prison. An old Irish nursery rhyme reads, "Are you a witch, or are you a fairy, or are you the wife of Michael Cleary?" Changelings have been the subject of stories, songs, poems, and nightmares for a long time. It was the main theme of W.B. Yeats' poem, The Stolen Child.
Oh man, I thoroughly enjoyed this stuff here. I mean, just listen to me, man. I'm sitting here thinking about all kinds of stuff here, but it was quite interesting. You know what I mean? The Banshee one kind of took me off guard because I heard about the Banshee, but I didn't know it was an Irish mythological character. That's pretty interesting, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed it. You know, learn a little bit of thing about ancient Irish mythology and thing like that. You know what I mean? I'll leave a link to the description in the description for this video. You understand? And I'll also leave links to other videos that I've reacted to on Irish history, politics, mythology, you name it, you understand? I'll leave a playlist also so that you could go check out my reactions to those things and my little commentary and thing. Drop a like on this video for me, you know what I mean? So that people could, you know, see it. YouTube will push it out there and we could learn about each other. That's the point, learn about each other. Once we understand each other historically and we draw parallels to the way we are now, maybe we could come to an understanding of each other. You all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.